Hi there, in this video we're gonna learn how to track the user's progress and we're gonna see what is the user's score. So let's go ahead and open our layout file, activity underline main.xml. So here we've got this text view, txt quiz stats, and we also have this quiz progress bar. The ID is quiz progress bar and the text view ID is txt quiz stats. So now we are going to connect our Java code to our components here and we're gonna interact with them. So let's go into our main activity. So you already know how to do that. So if you want to, you can pause the video and just do this task yourself. Or if you want to, you can just continue watching as I'm going to connect this layout to my Java file. So first and foremost, we need to have a member variable. So it is going to be private and the data type is going to be progress bar and the name is going to be mProgress bar semicolon. So next we need to have another member variable for that text view, txt quiz stats. So the data type is going to be text view and it is going to be text view, or let's say quiz stats text view semicolon. Now let's go inside the onCreate method and initialize our member variables. So here I am going to, after this mtxt question, let's refer to the mProgress bar assignment operator, find view by id r.id dot. So here we have the pb, or I think it is let's go back to the activity underline main.xml. So the ID is quiz pb. So it is going to be quiz pb semicolon. And then the next member variable is quiz stats text view assignment operator, find view by id r.id.txt quiz stats semicolon. So now that we initialized our UI components, now we need to have another member variable that is going to keep track of the user's progress or score. So let's say private, it is going to be of type integer, and let's name it as muser score semicolon. So every time the users answer the questions correctly, we are going to increase the value of the muser score. And every time the user answers a question, we are going to increment the value of this mProgress bar, so it will show the user's progress. So let's create a constant at the top of our class. So as you know, the constant is final. This means that once it is initialized, we cannot change its value later. So the data type is going to be integer, and by convention, we capitalize the name of our constants in Java. So that's why I'm gonna just turn on the caps lock on my keyboard and I'm gonna give this constant a name. So the name is going to be user underline progress. Okay, assignment operator, and I'm gonna assign the value 10 to this constant. So every time the users answer a question, the progress bar will be updated by 10. So you're going to see how this logic works in a minute. So remember, the maximum value of the progress bar is 100. So when I say user progress is 10, because we have 10 questions, every time the user answers a question, we are going to increment the value of the progress bar by 10. So it's going to show us that value graphically to the user. So let's go inside the change question on button click, and every time this method gets executed, after setting the text of this mtxt question, I'm going to update the progress bar. So I'm going to refer to the progress bar and I'm going to say increase or increment progress by, and then the value that we are going to pass is going to be user progress. So this is the constant that we created above. So every time this method gets called, change question on button click, it's gonna increment the value of this progress bar by this value that we pass to this method, increment progress by user progress. So let's go ahead and run the program and see the result. So here, I'm gonna click on this true button. Now the value of this progress bar is incremented by 10. I'm gonna click on this run button. Now again, incremented. So because we have 10 questions, then we have 10 options. So that's it. But after the progress is finished, we need to do something so the user will actually be able to reset the quiz. But now let's just go ahead and just update this txt quiz stats. So here, if you take a look at the member variable muserscore, we need to update it every time the user answers the question correctly. So inside the evaluate user's answer method, we have this if statement that checks the current question answer is equal to user guess. So this means that the user has answered the question correctly. So after this toast message, I'm gonna just refer to the muserscore, and I'm gonna add one value to it every time the user answers the question correctly. So I'm gonna say muserscore assignment operator, muserscore plus 1, semicolon. So just because we have updated the value of this muserscore, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's gonna show this value or display this value to the user. In order to display this value to the user, we have to update the txt quiz stats, that text view that we have here. So in order to do that, we can just go inside this change question on button click, and after updating this mProgress bar, now I can just refer to this quiz stats text view dot set text, and then I can just refer to this muserscore. So now let's go ahead and run the program and see the result. So here, let's just click on this true button. So now the application crashed. Let's go inside the logcat and see what is the cause of this crash. So here it says android.content.res.resources not found exception, string resource ID. So it seems that there is something wrong with a string value. And we've got these links to our Java codes. So I'm gonna just click on this first link. So it's gonna highlight a code that is causing this crash. So in line number 110, I have this line of code, mQuizStats text view dot set text muserscore. So the problem is this text view can only accept a value that is of type string or a string resource ID. It doesn't accept a value that is of type integer. So the data type of this muserscore is integer. We cannot pass a value that is of type integer to this setText method that accepts only a value of type string or a resource ID. So in order to solve this problem, I'm just gonna convert this muserscore to a string value by saying plus double quotes, 2 double quotes. Now this integer value is converted to a string value. Now if you go ahead and run the program, you will see that the problem will be solved and it won't crash the application. So I'm gonna click on this true button. Now it says 1. Now the score of the user is 1. And I'm gonna click on this wrong button. It is 2, true button. So if I answer a question incorrectly, then it's not gonna increase the value of this muserscore. But if I answer the question correctly, then it's gonna just increase the value of this user score. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. But now let's go back to our Android Studio. Here, if you scroll to the top, we've got this user progress, and we assigned the value 10 as the user progress. So the problem is, what if we have 20 questions or 100 questions? What if we decide to add 1,000 questions to our quiz application? Then this value number 10 is not a good value. It's not dynamic, and it's gonna cause problems later. So in order to solve this problem, we know that the maximum value of the progress bar is 100. So I can simply say 100 divided by the length of the question collection, the number of quiz questions that we have. So I'm gonna refer to the question collection dot length. So now we have an error. And if I hover over this red underline here, it says illegal forward reference. So this means that we have used this question collection before we create it. So we have to just cut this line of code and put it in a place that is after the creation of this question collection. So I'm gonna put it here. Okay, now the problem is solved. Remember, the flow of the program is very important. If you try to use a variable before creating it, then it's gonna show you an error, then you are going to have a compile error or build error. But now the problem is solved. So now we have number 100 divided by a question collection dot length. So for example, if the question collection dot length is 10, then 100 divided by 10, then the result will be 10, and the user progress value will be automatically correct. But there is a problem here. For example, let's assume that we have 17 questions, right? So I'm gonna say 100 divided by 17. So the result of this operation will be 5, and it will be a decimal value, right? So we're going to have some decimal values after the decimal point. So in this case, we don't want the value number 5 because this operation is going to be, the result will be an integer value, because the result of the division of two integer values will always be an integer value. So what does that mean? This means that the decimal point and the numbers after the decimal point will be completely ignored. So I don't want the number 5 as the result because it is the incorrect value if we want to just increase the progress bar correctly. We need to round up the number to the next integer value. So the progress bar just increases correctly, and it will be shown to the user that everything is running smoothly without any problems or without any UI bugs. So in order to solve this problem, we need to round up the result of this operation. So instead, it will give us number 6 as the result. So how we can solve that problem? We have a function in Java that is called the ceil, and it stands for the ceiling. So I'm going to use it here, math.ceil. So it accepts a value of type double. So if I call this method here again, you will see that this method, ceil, accepts a value of type double, and it returns a value of type double. But our variable or our constant is of type integer. So we're going to learn how to solve that problem too. But for now, let's just say that math.ceil, and let's put this operation inside the parentheses of this ceil, so it will always actually round up the number to the next integer value. And now it's showing us an error, and it says incompatible types required integer but found double, because this math.ceil returns a value of type double, but this variable or this constant needs a value of type integer. So now I'm going to cast this double value to an integer value. Before this math.ceil, I'm going to put a pair of parentheses, and I'm going to put the data type integer here. So now the result of this operation will be casted to an integer value, and the integer value will be assigned back to this user progress. But here you should know that this math.ceil actually accepts a double value, and this 100 is a whole number, and here at the question collection.length is also a whole number. So in order to make sure that the result will be correct, we need to just change this 100 to a double value or a decimal value by putting the .0 here. So now the result of this operation will be a double value, and then it will be casted to an integer value. So everything will work perfectly without any problems. Now let's go ahead and run the program and see how the application is going to work. Okay, let's click on the true button, false, true. So now you can see that although the application is actually finished and the quiz is finished, but you can see that I can still get score. So this is a bug that we have to solve. And there are also some other bugs that we are going to address in the following tutorials.